Hey there, fabulous, fierce females. Welcome back to Divorce the Next Chapter podcast. Today we are going to get real, raw, and maybe a little blunt. And this is definitely a topic that hits home for a lot of us. My name is Jana. I am your host. I am a nurse. I am a single mom. I am a survivor of a narcissistic relationship and marriage. And I'm here to tell you that you can survive after divorce. So let's get into this topic. I have my notes. I have my water. We're all good to go. Okay. So we're diving into this topic that's definitely close to home for a lot of us. And, you know, for many of us, we become the hyper independent woman. So that lady that's got her own back, her own life, probably a list of reasons why she can't depend on anybody else to do everything and she needs to do everything, right? Sounds a little familiar? I know, it does, because I definitely suffer from this, okay? So this is something that we're talking about. Is a hyper-independent woman a badge of honor, or is it just a fancy mask hiding some dirty trauma secrets? Let's get into it, okay? So first, let's talk about trauma response in disguise. Why did you become a hyper-independent woman? It was through messy divorce. It was through, reasons that you just had to for no other reason. You just had to do it. So the biggest reason is trauma. It's just that easy. It's just that simple. And whether you realize that you experienced trauma in the life that you were living, realize it, and it does carry into other aspects of your life, whether you're conscious of it or not. It just is. So when your trust gets shattered, betrayal or abandonment, so however your trust has been shattered, betrayal or abandonment, and sometimes it's a little bit of both, your mind says, you know what? No more relying on anybody because I can't trust anybody. I'll just do it myself and it'll get done. And then what happens is we start piling stuff on. We take on everything and we don't ask for help with anything because we don't want to go through what we had been through. Okay? So it's like building a fortress around your heart because we're vulnerable. So we're going to protect that at all costs, right? So not exactly safe territory anymore. Independence becomes less about empowerment and more about self-preservation, trauma-coded in armor. So you build up this armor because your trauma has taught you that the only way that you will survive is to do everything yourself and become hyper-independent. There's a lot of forms of this. I could tell you from my own experience, a lot of it was building that fortress because time and time again, when I relied on him to do something, it just didn't happen. And it was to the point where I started to believe that it was being done on purpose. That when I asked him to do something, the opposite would happen, or it just wouldn't happen at all, on purpose. So then I would have to do such thing. It could have been anything, cleaning the dishes, taking the kids somewhere, please don't be late. Like so many different things. Here's a huge example. So when my youngest daughter was very small, and this happened with my older daughter too, but when my youngest daughter was very small, she was going to pre-K and you had to be there at whatever time, 8:30 say. And he was constantly late. And there was always an excuse. Oh, she wasn't ready. She's 4 years old. What do you mean she wasn't fucking ready? So eventually what I did was I started paying for someone to bring her to school. Someone to come and pick her up from my house and bring her to school so I knew she would be at school on time. So that was a forced thing for me to find a solution because he was just doing the opposite of what needed to be done. So, I could give so many different examples. We've all been there, but what happens is you start to build this fortress and you start to do everything yourself. And then eventually we don't know how to ask for help anymore because it's a fear of being rejected. It's a fear of it not getting done. It's a fear of all of it. It's a trauma response, and it makes you develop into this hyper independent woman. And that leads you into a whole different ball game of trouble. Another reason number 2, control freak mode. This kind of leads right into it. Number 1 leads right into number 2. And when chaos erupted in marriage or in life, we have gone full on control freak because control makes us feel safe. And if we have control over everything, then nothing bad will happen because we control the whole situation. So in that example that I just said, in me getting someone to bring my daughter to school every day, that was controlling. But I used to say all the time when his response would be, "You're so controlling." Such a narcissistic response to say. Yeah. And I would say, yeah, I'm controlling because nobody's driving the ship. There's nobody driving this ship. And if I don't drive it, we're going to crash. And I used to say that all the time. And it was true. If I didn't control the situation, you made me into a control freak. You made me be hyper independent. You made me not be able to rely on you. And now that trauma carried into so many different aspects of my life because we learn what we're given. We learn over time. And whether we learn positive or negative behaviors, we're still learning them. And that's what trauma does to you. It makes you learn these behaviors. And in that moment in time, it's positive because it's survival. But for the long run, it's negative because that's just not how we're meant to be. That's just not how we're meant to be. So when everything feels unpredictable, the safest bet is always to control what you can. So that way, if you're the boss of your own ship, you're the captain, nobody else can sink it but you, right? It's a coping mechanism for chaos. It's a coping mechanism for dealing with everything being out of control. We start to control everything. And you become a control freak. And it's a trauma response. And you become that hyper independent woman because it's a trauma response. And then before you know it, when you're out of that relationship, you're still in that mindset of controlling everything because that's your safety net. That's now the safety. And you feel safe. You put up all this armor and now you're safe. But eventually, we have to take that armor off. So another reason, and this flows right into it, past failures or betrayals. So sometimes it's just plain old disappointment. It's just plain old disappointment. And you've given, a chance and they fucked up the chance. And you're just so highly disappointed because now, not only are you disappointed in the person, but you're disappointed in yourself because you knew better. You were just trying to give another chance and they failed. So now you're disappointed. So trust becomes an expensive luxury. You hold on to that. And you don't let that trust anybody. Because that would be being vulnerable and you might get hurt again. So that's where it comes into, I don't need anybody. It's easier to stand alone than risk getting hurt. And that's trauma speaking loud and clear. So, and I have to say, that this didn't only happen in my marriage. This happened after my marriage too. And I reached out to people to help me. Before I filed for divorce, I reached out to people to help me with different situations, to talk to him, to try to help in any way possible. And what I realized is people will say that they will help you, but it is on their terms only. So every time I reached out to someone to help, there was always an excuse why they couldn't help. And what did that teach me? That taught me that people really aren't there to help. There was one person that tried his hardest to help me. And eventually it broke him. It really broke him. And he tried so hard. And he was out of all of my friends and all of really family that I tried to reach out for help. He was the only one, and it really broke him. So even after all of the situations that happened in my marriage that led me to being hyper independent, other people started showing me the same patterns, and I just basically shut everybody out. And now I know that it wasn't their fault. They just couldn't help me in the way that I needed to be helped. And it's fine. I've had many conversations with people, and it's fine. But we have to learn to open up a little bit and accept some help sometimes. So let's get into it. So is being a hyper-independent woman a positive or a negative quality? On the bright side, independence is strength, it's resilience, and it's freedom. Because you're not waiting around for someone to give you permission to live your life. You're not living by somebody else's rules. You're making the rules, and you're living by those rules. And being self-reliant can open doors you never knew existed, because now you're relying on yourself to get everything done. But overdoing it, you can overdo it, and it can turn into stubbornness, loneliness, and inability for love or support. You just turn into this like armor is the best way I could describe it. And then you don't let anybody in. So that's a problem. It may look good from the outside. Everyone's saying, oh, look at her. She's doing great. She does it all by herself. But on the inside, you don't want to do it all by yourself. You never signed up to do it all by yourself. That wasn't the deal. That wasn't the deal. And look what happened. So, yeah, from the inside, you might be masking a deep fear of being vulnerable, because we were taught in our toxic relationship, in our narcissistic marriage, in our narcissistic traumas, we were taught, whether you like it or not, that the only way to safeguard everything is to be hyper independent, to be that control freak, to take the situation bull by the horns, and that way you know it's going to work out. Right? Okay. Solutions. How to keep your independence but not become a lonely fortress. How to keep your independence but not become a lonely fortress. Okay. Yeah, I said it. Practice vulnerability. Opening up just a little bit it's scary because, opening up is key, okay, for so many different reasons. Sharing your fears, your hopes, your messiness, being vulnerable isn't weakness, it's courage. I did not tell a lot of my friends and family what was going on for many different reasons. I didn't tell some of my family because at the same time that I was going through this messy fucking divorce and the tail end of my marriage, my mother was also dying. So I was very selective to telling people what was going on because I was always dealing with my mother's illness and my father's breakdown and, different things. And so that was very heavy, and it was a very heavy period of my time. But the other aspect of it is the people that I was telling stories to, honey, when you say that shit out loud of what is happening in your marriage, in your life, then you will hear yourself and hear how fucking crazy shit has been. So when I started telling certain people, I would be like, did I just say that? Did that really just fucking happen to me? That was a real situation that happened. And it started to make me realize how crazy town everything was. Like, for real, crazy town everything was. So sharing your story, your weaknesses, your mess is not burdening anybody. It's helping you heal. It's making you vulnerable again, because you haven't been in such a long time, right? And it shows up as courage. You don't have to spill your guts everywhere you go. I'm not saying like on the fucking grocery line, the lady in front of you says hi and you just start blurting everything out. No. You have trusted people, your best friend, your best cousin, your best coworker. Trusted people, selective, trusted people. Start opening up to people. Start putting little holes in that armor for your true self to come out again, okay? Set boundaries, not barriers. Boundaries are so hugely important. It's part of the reason why we got into the sticky situation that we got into, because we lacked boundaries. And before you knew it, everybody was taking advantage of the boundary because you just kept being a yes girl. So when you define the boundary and you stick to it, it lets others earn your trust and respect your space without shutting everybody out entirely. I'm not talking about barriers. I'm talking about boundaries. Things that you say a hard no on. A hard no, you're not doing that ever again. Something that had happened to you that when you think about that, you'll say, that shit's never going to fucking happen again. Boundaries, not barriers. Okay? Number 3, seek support without losing yourself. You build a tribe, not a cult, a tribe. So what do I mean by that? People who you could trust, divorce support groups, best friends, your best girlfriends, that family member, cousin that's your bestest friend, that you've grown up together, you know each other inside and out. You surround yourself with people that support you. Not joining a group online that's all about man bashing. That's a cult. That is not going to help you. Yeah, some of the shit's really funny, but it's not going to help you in your healing process as far as actually healing and getting over some of this stuff. So, and ask for help. Start small. So, example, I up and sold my house, and I moved to another state. And I really didn't know. I know people here. Don't get me wrong. I know people here, but I didn't have a support group. So when my daughter, going into 7th grade, decided to do the musical, I really didn't have anybody to help me pick up. I work an hour away from my house. And some of these end times were 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. I don't get home sometimes until 4:30, almost 5 o'clock. How in the world am I going to do this? And luckily, the 3 other moms also worked, and we formed a carpool group. And we became very good friends. And that started my little support here, because I knew that my daughter would be able to get home. I knew that she was safe and that she would be doing something that she really wanted to do and was fun for her. So reaching out for little things like that for help. And these women don't know my story. They don't know what I've been through. They don't know what disastrous marriage I had, and that my mom died, and all the craziness that had happened, because they don't really need to, you know. After being friends with them for so long, they have little snippets of ideas, but like, it wasn't a necessary thing. They knew I was a single mom, and they knew I needed help. And we all needed help because we all worked. So it was mutually beneficial to all of us. So little things like that start to help with your hyper independence, because it took some of that pressure off. And I didn't feel so isolated. So it's time to take a really long look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you wearing your independence like an armor? Or are you living solo by choice, not because you're scared to trust anyone? So look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I hyper independent because of my past traumas? Or do I just like doing everything by myself? There's nothing wrong with that. It all depends on where it's coming from, you know? Power is in your hands. Just don't forget that real strength includes knowing when to lean on others, knowing when to make that carpool group, knowing who to ask for some help. And maybe it's like a physical help, like a carpool, or maybe it's just somebody you could call and vent and bounce ideas off of, you know? So that's my podcast for today. I hope you learned something. I hope you really reflect on being hyper independent, because I think all of us that have survived the trauma of a narcissistic marriage or a toxic marriage relationship all share that hyper independence. Some show up more than others, but I think we really need to take a really long look in the mirror and say to ourselves, why am I such a control freak? Okay? Until next time, remember, stay fierce, remember, stay kind, and remember, you can do it. You can do anything. You are worthy. Love you. Have a great night.